Good day, everyone. Today, we are going to share a story about a boy named Pat and his journey to achieving his dream. This is Pat, a senior high school student from BSI High, and today is his first day of work immersion. Pat, together with his friends, was assigned into a nearby airport to help out avionics technicians with their work. On their first day, their instructor, Mom Alicia, discussed the agenda for the whole work immersion. This consists of a lot of talks from experts from various fields of aviation, interactive trainings in the field, and of course, getting to know the different instruments used in the aircraft. The last part is what Pat is the most excited about. He has always been interested in the field of aviation ever since he was a child. So being around all these instruments makes him feel like he is one step closer to his childhood dream. During the introduction, Pat proudly announced his goal to enter his dream school, Pat's College of Aeronautics, in order to become an avionics technician. He told everyone that he was influenced by his parents, who also worked in the same field. At the end of the day, they finally get to inspect the important aircraft instruments. Pat couldn't stop the smile forming on his face. Each student was assigned an aircraft instrument, and the vertical speed indicator was assigned to Pat. Unfortunately, with all the aircraft instruments assigned, Pat was the most unfamiliar with the vertical speed indicator, thus giving him a hard time familiarizing himself with the said instrument. They already used up their work immersion hours for the day, so Mom Alicia just set their current activity into an assignment. They were tasked to research more on the instrument assigned to them and present them by the end of the week. Mom Alicia wished them a safe trip back home and dismissed them. The moment Pat arrived home, he opened his personal computer and researched about the vertical speed indicator. He is determined to make a good impression in front of experts in his desired field of profession, and put all of his effort into this presentation. Of course, Pat started with the basics, the definition. He learned that the vertical speed indicator is also referred to in various names such as the variometer, rate of climb, and descent indicator, and the vertical velocity indicator. The vertical speed indicator is responsible for indicating the rate of which an aircraft climbs or descends. The VSI can be calibrated to display the rate in meters per second, in feet per minute, or in knots. The vertical speed indicator functions solely from static pressure. Static pressure, or hydrostatic pressure as it is sometimes called, is the pressure exerted by a fluid at rest. Since the fluid is not moving, static pressure is the result of the fluid's weight or the force of gravity acting on the particles in the fluid. With Pat's interest in the instrument growing and growing as he continues to read about its importance, he decided to look into how the instrument works. He learned that a simple VSI can be constructed by adding a large reservoir, like a thermos bottle, to increase the storage capacity. In its simplest electronic form, the instrument consists of an air bottle connected to the external atmosphere through a sensitive airflow meter. As the aircraft changes altitude, the atmospheric pressure outside the aircraft changes, and air flows into or out of the air bottle to equalize the pressure inside the bottle and outside the aircraft. Through the things mentioned earlier apply to older models of the vertical speed indicator, newer models directly measure the static pressure of the atmosphere using a pressure sensor and detect changes in altitude directly from the change in air pressure instead of by measuring airflow. These designs tend to be smaller as they do not need the air bottle. They are more reliable as there is no bottle to be affected by changes in temperature and less chances for leaks to occur in the connecting tubes. The BSI uses the aircraft pilot static system to determine the vertical speed and depicts the result on a conventional needle and circular scale instrument or on a ribbon at the side of an electronic flight instrument system, EADI. In a simple BSI, a barometric capsule is contained in a sealed case. The capsule is fed with static pressure from the pilot's static system, while the case is also connected to that system through a calibrated nozzle. The nozzle restricts the passage of air so that there is time delay between a change in static pressure and that pressure being experienced within the case. Thus, if the aircraft climbs or descends, the pressure within the capsule will decrease, while that within the case will decrease at a lower rate due to the presence of the nozzle. Movement of the capsule is translated into movement of a needle by a mechanical system. Pat was also able to learn the important components of the vertical speed indicator, the diaphragm and the calibrated leak. The diaphragm is a flexible metal container connected to the instrument's static air source. The diaphragm is also connected to a set of gears and rods that move your BSI's needle up and down, and that happens when the diaphragm expands and contracts. The calibrated leak is a tiny hole that connects the casing of the BSI to the static source. However, the hole in the calibrated leak is small enough that it restricts airflow, therefore unable to move in and out as fast as the diaphragm. Due to the vertical speed indicator relying on the air leaking in and out of the casing, it needs a little more time for everything to stabilize, therefore needing the concept of trend versus rate. When you initially start climbing or descending, your BSI needle will start moving, but it can't immediately indicate how fast you're climbing. This is what's called trend information. When you see the direction of the needle moving up, you know your climb rate is increasing, and when it moves down, you know your climb rate is decreasing. After a second or two, the calibrated leak has a chance to catch up and reach equilibrium, and your BSI will stabilize at a certain climb or descent rate. When that happens, you have rate information. Pat was also able to learn that there are a few things that the pilot should consider and check on the vertical speed indicator before the aircraft is ready for flight. He learned that the BSI should reach 0 before the flight takes place. In special cases, the instrument can still be used even though it doesn't display 0, but the rate it displays should now be considered as the basis like you would on a zero display. This, of course, is highly discouraged as it can create more errors that may cause serious hazards, especially when it comes to weather. Speaking of errors, Pat also took note of the errors that are possible when using the vertical speed indicator. He learned that the speed indicator is more sensitive than that of an altimeter, but it inherently lags, causing a 6 to 9 second delay that may prevent the instrument from displaying accurate readings right away, especially during any turbulence, severe weather conditions, and abrupt control movements. Another crucial error that is possible during the operation of the vertical speed indicator is that it will give zero readings when the static port is blocked. After thinking that he's learned and researched enough for his presentation, he decided to stick with the usual slideshow as his form of presentation. Figured that he'll be able to explain it effectively that way. He spent the rest of his time before bedtime searching appropriate pictures on the web to put on his presentation. Once he was satisfied with the visual aids for the presentation, he decided to call it a night and excitedly wait for the end of the week for the presentation. The week passed by quickly, and it was now time for everyone to present what they've learned on the instruments assigned to them. When it was Pat's turn, he confidently stood in the front of the room as he believes that he's learned enough to actually pull off this presentation. Pat started with a short video presentation about the vertical speed indicator to catch everyone's interest and attention. After the video, he proceeded to present his slideshow and share what he's learned to everyone. Pat confidently presented his learning and ideas about the vertical speed indicator. After the presentation, he was praised by both of his classmates and instructors about how well it was put together and how he made it pretty easy to understand. As Pat approached his seat, he was called by Mom Alicia. Mom Alicia congratulated him for the successful presentation and told him that he'd made a good avionics technician someday. It was at that moment that he realized that he is one step closer to his dream, and it made him very happy. The end.